Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to take a look at hosting our application from a domain with this SSL certificate. So for those who haven't been following the series, this application consists of an server-side rendered Nuxt application and an ASP.NET Core API. We're going to use Nginx to glue them together, and we're going to be using a Linode hosting service as our VPS. Now, if you've just came here to see how to set up the virtual machine, I'm going to put timestamps in the description. Go ahead and check them out. Otherwise, before we're going to do that, we're going to take a look at some of the things I missed out and some of the things that I actually want in my application before we publish it to avoid some headaches. So first of all, let's go ahead into our startup. So we're going to open up the startup file. Let's go all the way down to the bottom. And where we have all this identity server stuff, let's open up our CS proj. And what we're going to do, we're just going to remove identity server. Once that is removed, let's go ahead, get rid of all this stuff in the startup. And I'm going to start jumping to all the places where we have errors. And I'm just going to remove a bunch of this stuff. The login is going to look super simple now. Let's go ahead and keep looking for basically missing references. Remove the middleware. Again, missing package names. The get claims, we no longer need these bits, so let's go ahead and remove them. And I feel like that is it for the identity server part. And let's go ahead now, open up the API, open up app settings production, and the development one, we're going to take the connection string and we're going to put it here, right? So during the previous episode, I didn't actually put a connection string in my, during the build pipeline. So we're going to do that now. And I've already added the secret connection strings, which I'm going to be using on the server. So when we're going to be setting up the PostgreSQL server on the backend, maybe you want to first kind of put the string in the production file there, and we're going to go through some iterations of how we can look at errors and stuff like that when starting our application. So come up with a connection string. You may put it here, you may not. Just be warned that you will need this thing. Another thing I will put in here is an admin password. So again, this is something that's going to be secret, and I've already added it to my secret vault. The other bit from the development part is this ffmpeg stuff. So the ffmpeg stuff will be going into file settings. We will be using a ffmpeg program on our Linux box, so we don't need to do any special path here. If we need to change this, we will. Otherwise, the working directory, we can set it to temp tmp, so tricking royale, and I think underscore will be a little bit better. So that's going to be the temporary files for our tricking royale. That's my other application library. Okay, so for our tricking library application, since we've added 2 secrets, we will need to add it to our pipeline. So let's go ahead into GitHub. We will need to go into the API build and deploy. Let's go ahead, add 2 new ones. We will go into the connection strings. We'll grab that. We'll say default. All right, so the default property. I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna grab the name of the secret. So PostgreSQL connection string for me. And then the one for the admin password. Jumping to all the wrong places. Let's go ahead and just set the admin password here. And the name that I gave that admin password. Okay, so that was pretty simple. So let's go ahead and just grab the admin password from the secret vault. So those are the 2 new secrets that are going to be added. Let's go ahead and close that. And specifically why I wanted to add an admin password is right here where we do a test for the test user. When we go into production, we don't want to be seeding all of this stuff. We're not going to have any of these default videos or anything like that. This is purely test data. So for when we go into live, I just want to see the admin user. Okay, so we're going to need the user manager to be outside of here. So let's go ahead and just bring him out here. We will grab this if statement, and we are just going to highlight it because this is like 10 miles long. So we can jump to this bit here. And else if admin user is not in there, and this is production, let's go ahead and, set up our admin user. So let's go back up here and we'll grab the code for the admin user. We are just going to grab this bit. We're not going to be adding the record into the platform. and because this really should be added only once. Don't want to touch the ID and the email. I don't think the email is needed. The password is going to come from the configuration. So let's go ahead and back to the top. We're going to grab one of these lines here, back to the bottom, and we are just going to grab a config. This is going to be a configuration. And from the config, let's remove these brackets. We are going to config get section admin password and dot value. Okay, so we just grab the value of the admin password and create the user with that. The last couple of things I think we had to do in the startup here is to set this up for, so like what kind of passwords do we want for our production. Let's go ahead, grab these options, put them here. I think I want maybe around 8 characters. Require digit, we will say true. Require lowercase, true. Require uppercase is true, and require non-alpha numeric, we will keep that at false. And maybe uppercase, you know, could be a little bit too harsh there, but we will set that to false. Having longer passwords is a lot more secure than having crazy characters in there. That is that. Let me just double check my program again. Everything's all right with the user. Really don't want to mess this one up. And that looks all right to me. So let's close that. Let's go ahead, give this a commit. So this is going to be episode 65 pre-production fixes. Let's go ahead, commit that, and we are just going to go ahead and push it to our GitHub repository. So once that's pushed, let's go ahead and go into the actions here. And we are going to be about to deploy our API application. Before we do that, we're gonna do two things. Let me just open up my Google domains. So here I am with one of my domains, rawcoding.net. Make sure that when you are going to set up one of these domains, this is the setup. So rawcoding.net matches the record here, and use custom name servers. The name servers are displayed here. So make sure to wherever you got your domain from, it is actually pointing to Linode name servers. Okay, that is going to be crucial. Next thing, we got the VM from previous episodes where we already got our applications deployed. It is currently offline. We want to do two things before we do that, right? We want to take note of the IP address, and we want to create an AAA record. Let's go ahead, add a record here. We'll say app. So that's just going to be the app, and where does the app gonna live? So it's gonna be at that address. So now if we visit app.rawcoding.net, that should try to hit the IP address. Now this change is going to take a while, maybe an hour, 2, 3, a day, up to 48 hours to take effect. So if it's not working straight away, do not stress, give it a little bit of time. So now that that's pointing at our VM, another thing that we're going to need is to resize our virtual machine. For this, you have to have it offline, and you're going to go into disk configuration. And this is the image that I've loaded it from. And you can see the size is 3,100 megabytes, and you have 21 more megabytes available. So I'm going to go ahead and say, let's resize the disk and let's set it to something like 21 gigabytes. You know, use as much of available power as possible, and leave a little bit more leeway in case, you know, for the dark day, always have a saving, right? Okay, so once your disk has been resized, go ahead, power on your application, and in case when you're going to be installing stuff like apt installing whatever packages, and you're gonna get like error, not enough space, this is the option that you want to fix, okay? Other than that, go back to the summary, grab the IP address, let's open up the terminal, and let's go ahead and connect to that when it is booted up. So like an unwelcomed guest, just keep knocking until they let you in. Okay, so here we are on the machine, and from the previous episodes, this is for those who have just tuned in. This is where we have deployed API is our ASP.NET Core application, app is our Nuxtjs application. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to run my API build pipeline, and that is going to just update my API. So I've done no changes to my Nuxtjs application. There is no reason to re-update it. This is just going to go ahead, run the build and deploy it. So there it is. It should take about a minute. And while that's working, we can go ahead and get started to setting this up, right? So for those who are just tuning in, I'm assuming you have your own application. You're just looking for an example of how to, get a server with a Postgres database and Nginx and Nuxtjs or ASP.NET Core running. So first of all, we're going to install all the packages that we need. First things first, we are going to be hosting .NET Core. So I will literally Google install ASP.NET Core Linux. I'm going to find the link again because I can never remember the actual commands. I do have them written down. I don't feel like actually opening up the notes and looking at them. So yep, this is the part. These are the packages that you want to call. So let's go ahead and just do this bit here, right here. Then run this command. Okay. Sudo. Okay. Let's clear. We can ls and remove the packages, whatever that it brought in here. And now what we want to do is we want to install a bunch of things to actually allow us to work with the tech stack that we've chosen, right? So let's go sudo apt update first. Always update first. Make sure your VM is updated, whatever this does. I already said a couple of things. I don't actually know what this command does. It shouldn't take too long. Okay, so that is now finished, and now we can sudo apt install, and we want to install a couple of things. First things first, .NET-runtime. If you remember from the episode where we've been playing around with .NET, we've just installed the .NET SDK, which is the development kit. The .NET runtime is literally just for running the application. There is no tools for actually building the application, so this is a lighter weight option. Okay, and 3.1, since that is the version that we're running. We're also, let's put a -y flag so we don't have to keep pressing yes all the time. Oh, because we're going to be running PostgreSQL, let's go ahead and install PostgreSQL. I don't think we need commas. We're going to need Nginx for hosting. We're going to need Node.js to run our Nuxt application, and we're going to need npm to run the scripts. Okay, let's go ahead, press enter here. That is going to take some time to install. So once that's done, the one thing that I have forgotten is ffmpeg. So let's just go ahead, sudo install, or I forgot the apt. So apt install ffmpeg, right? Make sure you say yes to that. Cool. So that's over. We got our Postgres.NET runtime, Node.js, and npm, ffmpeg, and Nginx. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to set up our PostgreSQL server. Let's go ahead, clear this, and we want to be able to switch to our Postgres user that has been set up. We're not going to know the password, so what we want to do is we actually want to set the password for our Postgres user, set it to something super mega secret. Hopefully you guys can't guess my password. Let's go ahead and switch the user to him. Okay, and there we go. So we are now logged in as a Postgres user. Again, if you don't know anything about Postgres, go ahead and watch my Postgres setup tutorial. So let's go ahead and carry on. So create database tricking library. There we go. So that will create us a library. I think we can list these. We can switch the connection here. And in here we can try to list the relations, like what tables are there and stuff like that. You already know, if you watched those tutorials, how to get our databases here after we've ran the migrations. Let's get the scripts. Let's come back here. We'll paste this all in. We're going to check that the tables are all there. Looks good to me. The users are missing and stuff like that. So we're not going to be using .NET Update to run it. We are just going to go into scripts MD. We're going to copy the generate scripts line. We're going to go put it down here, replace the DB context, and we're just going to move the output here let's go ahead, copy the command and run it from our API. This is going to generate the scripts for user tables and stuff like that. So that's where our admin user is going to go. Okay, so that has finished running. Let's go ahead, close that. There's our script SQL. Let's go ahead, grab that, paste it in. Cool, list the tables again, and there are user tables and stuff like that. Let's go ahead, delete that. We don't really need it. As I said before, I don't think we are going to be doing any changes to the IdentityDB context or extending it in any shape or form. Now that we got this, if we go /DG, we only have the one Postgres user. So let's go ahead and quickly exit it. We're going to create the user in a different way than we did in the previous tutorial, primarily because I want to use a password prompt. So we're going to use a command line that is available. So create user, no create DB. So he's not allowed to create any databases. We're going to say that he can log into the database, and PV prompt is password prompt, double dash, don't forget that. For username, tricking library API. So that's going to be the user. It's going to prompt us for a password. I'm going to enter my super secret password. Going back into the database here, we are going to see our user here. Let's go ahead and grant him privileges. So we're going to switch back to the database here. Again, I don't know, paranoid or whatever. Go ahead, list the relationships, make sure you're in the correct database. And you've already seen me do this command before. I'm going to copy it off screen here because there is no way that I'm remembering it. Put it right here. So grant all privileges on all tables in schema to whatever user we have. So tricking library.api, colon on the end. And now the user should have access to all of these tables. Okay. And that should be the end of story. Again, you can go watch the PostgreSQL episodes if you're confused about what we're doing here. Let's go ahead, exit this, and we'll exit this as well. Let's go ahead, clear. At this point, I consider PostgreSQL server setup. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to the documentation, which one I had open. I'm going to leave links for this in the description where we had configure Nginx. There will be a section here about creating the service. So create the service, and this is about creating a systemd service. So what we want to do is we want to go, or I mean, if you kind of remember how we can use systemctl to control Nginx, to control SSHD service, we are basically going to package up our applications to run as services on this box, okay? So where these services live, let's go actually into this directory. We'll go into systemd. Here there will be a system folder. We'll go into here, and here are a couple of these services. What we want to do is we want to create one of these services here. Is it worth making it a little bit bigger? I think it is. Let's go ahead and sudo touch tricking library -api service. I think that's what we want. Let's just list this again to make sure that all of them end with service. You can see these are symbolic links due to the color. So what you really want to be doing is you want to have this file in your database, publish this file as well, and then make the symbolic link. But we're going to go a little bit rough here, and we're just going to say sudo v tricking library API service, and let's just whatever thing we had here, let's go ahead, take it, we'll put it in here. Let's just in insert mode, otherwise we might lose some characters. Back to insert mode, let's say that this is a tricking library API. Working directory will be var tricking library -api. So you can see the command is sort of set here. Now, because we set the working directory at the top here, we can actually just go .tricking library api.dll. So that's going to be pointing to the tricking library API DLL, and that's just going to start it. Restart whatever sys identifier. We're going to call this tricking library API. And when we're going to look at the logs, this is the thing that we're going to look for. Okay, the user, we're gonna delete the user bit, and that's about it. Let's go ahead, write and quit. We can ls again, and now let's sudo cp. So we're gonna copy the what's it called, the tricking library API service, and we're gonna create one for the app as well. So ls again, and there is our app service. Let's go ahead and edit it. So go into app. So we'll say tricking library Nuxtjs app. We will say that the directory is in app. Now what we want to do is just say, let's execute from this directory npm run start. So that's how you start a production Nuxtjs server. Let's set this to app, and let's delete these two environment variables. Okay. Let's go ahead and right quit this, and there it is, right? So that's pretty much the end of, well, not the actual, this is just the beginning. Right, so what do we want to do? We want to go into sudo system ctl, and we want to say start my tricking library app. Okay, you can then check the status of it. So running status, and here you can see you will have like the parts that it's listening on, etc. Now let's go ahead and do the same with our .NET Core application. We're gonna say go to our API and start it. And again, we can go ahead and try to inspect the status of it. Looks like it has exited with an error. So that is completely fine. We now are gonna go and look why it's failing. So to see where the logs are, let's go ahead and press cat. We're gonna go into var log-sys log, and there's gonna be a bunch of logs in here. Let's just say sudo cat, and the command that I've shown you before, we want to grep, and we want to filter tricking library API. We want to put it here, and we want to run it. So here we can see that it seems like it can't find the correct version of the .NET framework. So let's just type in .NET-v, or maybe just .NET-help, maybe --info to check the version. I almost never do this. So that looks alright to me. The other indication of this problem could be that we're just pointing to something incorrect. So let's just go ahead and verify var tricking library API. Let's just list what we have here. So let's just copy this name here. We will put it besides this thing. So let's just put it here. Copy this full path like that. Permission denied, that's fine. Now let's go ahead and find our sudo v tricking API service. Let's press insert, and let's just paste this somewhere here, and let's just double check if we've messed anything up. It looks good to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this line, and I'm going to, instead of what we have here, let's go ahead and delete all of this. We're just gonna paste it here, and we're gonna use this instead. So let's go ahead right quit this. We will have to restart this. So sudo system ctl daemon reload. Once that's reloaded, let's go ahead and we'll say so the daemon reload is to reload the current services files, and then we can go ahead and restart the tricking library API service, and then let's go ahead and just go straight to the logs and see if there is anything of the sort there that looks exactly the same. So let's go ahead and check out if I actually installed the wrong thing. So what did I install? I installed maybe ASP.NET Core. I don't think I've put an ASP.NET Core when I was installing it. So let's go ahead, copy this, and we're just going to replace this with 3.1. So sudo apt uninstall .NET, or whatever I said, .NET runtime 3.1, or remove. Yes, grand. Let's go ahead, put this thing here. We will replace it with 3.1. Sudo apt install. Let's get this in. Say yes. Cool. So let's try this again. .NET info or whatever we ran. I mean, it makes no difference to me. It looks exactly the same. Let's go ahead and give our service another restart. So let's give it a restart. Let's take a look at the logs again and see if anything has changed. Awesome, right, better. Now we have a big exception. Let's take a look at it. It will be a little bit easier if we zoom in, but basically what it says is that PostgreSQL utilities check empty string value. So we're basically supplying a null string into PostgreSQL. So what I'm going to do is, let's go ahead, clear this. I will go to ls var tricking library where we've been, API, and I'm going to cut the video here. I'm going to take a look at the app settings productions.json because I have my secrets there. I can't really show it to you, and I'm going to see what I have in my connection string. So I had to cancel the last build and rerun it because I've been pointing to an incorrect IP address. And the reason being is I've did a couple of practice runs before doing this, so the IP address was constantly changing because I scrapped my VM. So if you're going to create a new virtual machine, don't forget to update your IP address and the secrets, okay? Coming back to the terminal, let's go ahead and what we will need to do is every time we update our application, it's like an instance of it is loaded in the memory, and then the thing that's on disk isn't going to get brought into memory again. So every time we want to update the running service, we have to restart it. So sudo systemctl restart, and we want our API. Let's go ahead and do that. And again, let's go ahead and check its status. So looks like it's running now. Let's go ahead and take a look at the logs as well. So sudo cat var log system log syslogs, I think. Yes, syslog. And yeah, let's just take a look at that. And again, just grab tricking library API, see if there are any exceptions happening. If not, we're all good, right? So I'm just gonna zoom out here real quick. If we take a look at the timestamps, this persistent exception runs every time our service tries to restart. The other log is more recent. So let me go ahead, zoom back in. We're going to clear this and we're going to go in one more depth. Another thing to check is if we go into our Postgres user, right? We're going to go into PSQL. We're going to connect to our library. Let's go ahead, get our tables, and we're going to select all from. Let's go ahead, take a look at our users. Let's take a look in there. Looks like the seed logic hasn't ran. Let's quickly take a look at it if it's messed up in any way, shape, or form. Doesn't seem to be. I'm gonna go ahead and leave it actually and proceed with the actual episode. So let's go ahead, quit that. We're gonna quit out of our PostgreSQL. We're gonna clear that, and we're gonna go into the Nginx setup that is displayed here, and we're just gonna set up these options, okay? So the domain that we're interested in will be the one that we have set up here, okay? So the app.rawcoding.net. So let's go ahead into our /etc nginx, and in here, as I've explained previously, we'll have the sites enabled. Sites available and sites enabled. Let's go ahead into sites available. List this. There will be not much here. Let's go ahead, sudo touch, and by the way, this file should also be living in your repository. After this episode, I'm gonna copy those files and I'm gonna actually stick them in the repository and commit them, okay? And I highly recommend when you write these up or in the future, stick them in your repository as well. So let's do sudo touch app.rawcoding.net. So just the name of your domain. Let's list it. There it is. That's the only domain available to us. I know the application is a tricking library. You know, you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. Let's go ahead and sudo v into the file. Let's press I and let's go ahead and just copy this configuration from here. Okay, let's go ahead, put it here, paste it anyway, escape. And the things that we want to do is let's go ahead and change the server name. So let's just delete that and we'll say app.raw-coding.net. Here at /API and /account, I can't remember if it's account or accounts, pages account, right? So /API/account. That's when we want to go to our ASP.NET Core application. Let's go ahead, copy this. We will put it at the bottom here. Paste it in at the start. Let's go ahead and add a couple of spaces. Give it one more space, and if we're just going to slash, go ahead and try to put it to 3000, which is our Nuxtjs application. Okay, so let's go ahead, write and quit that. Let's go into sites enabled, and here we can list this. And again, let's make a symbolic link where we're gonna go to sites available. We're gonna grab our app rawcoding.net file, and we're gonna just set it to the same thing here, and make sure that you run it as sudo. And now we want to go ahead and test the file. So nginx-t, everything looks busted, so invalid location modifier. So seems like my bad probably. I don't know much about okay, did I actually go into the right thing? This is in sites enabled. Let's go ahead and go in sites available, actually edit it here. So in here, let's go for regex. So we'll do something like this, where we will say either API or account, and then that should be the location. Okay, let's try that. So let's again run sudo nginx test. The configuration test seems to be successful, so let's go ahead and reload it. Now we can go ahead and try to go to the application and see if it's loading. Okay, so take that. Let's go ahead, open it up and go to it. There we go. So we have connected to the application. I am pretty sure the database isn't working as it should, because we didn't see the admin user in the database. Okay, so let's go ahead and first I will show you how to set up an SSL certificate. So it is really easy. What you have to do is you have to Google for certbot. Okay, so certbot is the thing that will basically give you a free SSL certificate. You want to go into get certbot instructions. You take your thing. So we're using nginx. What system are we using? Ubuntu 2004, and then it's gonna basically give you a bunch of instructions to install that. So let's go to our terminal. We're gonna type in something like snap, and we already have the command. So let's go ahead, sudo snap. Let's actually do it from our home directory. I just like being there. Sudo snap install classic certbot. Once that's done, go ahead, keep going down. I mean, the instructions, you know, sometimes instructions are hard, sometimes they, no, this is a tough part, right? Because I looked at it and I was like, obviously didn't read any of this, I just saw cert only. I was like, oh yeah, let's go grab that. Don't grab the bottom option, grab this option. Basically, this part is going to do a bunch of setup for you. This is just going to give you a certificate, right? So this is going to go as far as editing your actual nginx configuration to put SSL certificate configuration in there, right? So you actually want to run this command. Let's go ahead and do that. So give it your email address. This will be mine. We'll say we agree, yes, and here you can see it is outputting. It can detect which domains or which configuration you want to install this for. So let's say we want to install it for that one. Now that that's done, we can now enjoy the safety of the internet, right? Now we're going to go ahead and fix the other issues that we had, and we're going to use systemctl enable at the end to make sure that our services start up if we restart our virtual machine on and whatnot. I've cut the video there, and coming back here, basically sorting out and looking at what the errors were. There were really just a bunch of silly little mistakes and a little bit of confusion from my side. So the first mistake was in the program CS. What I did was with the admin, I removed the email, and in the startup, we actually have a option to say require a unique email, right? So let's go ahead and to fix the admin seed issue. We want to say email equals something like admin@rawcoding.net. Okay, so not that important, although it's something you want there. Next thing is if we actually take a look at, For example, if we try to go to the login page, it's going to say undefined. That's because our .environment file isn't actually committed to the repository. So we're missing a couple of things, as well as if we actually try to go to something like, so another issue is we got the regex messed up a little bit. So it's not actually regex, it is still you know, like actually trying to match this specific regex expression that we've put in there. So if we try to go to something like account login, that's not going to be there, and that's still routing to our Nuxtjs application. So nginx config issue, the admin email, which we'll need to republish, and then you see when we try to go to login, that's just basically the environment variable. So let's go ahead, sort out the environment variables, then we're going to republish both the API and the app and fix the nginx config meanwhile, okay? So this was fixing the administrator issue. Let's go ahead and down here, and where we go into the web client, right here, where we have our env.production with these login paths, and these are relative, so we can actually keep them. One option that I do want to add, if we look in our Nuxtjs config, where we were specifying, we sort of have the backend URL hard-coded, so this bit isn't going to change, or shouldn't change, because we're still hosting our API on 5000, and that's all right. This bit right here, where we are trying to point to 5001, so if we maybe not try to search, but if we try to make any calls or anything like that, it is just going to try to actually on the front end call to localhost 5001, which obviously doesn't exist on our domain here. So what we want to invoke this from our .environment file as well. So let's go ahead, copy this, and we'll say browser side URL. We will set this to this value here. So let's go ahead and copy it. We'll go into environment and we'll put it here. Okay. And then we can grab this from process.env, and let's say something like, what do we just call it? Browser side URL. Let's put it there. So that's now going to be loaded from the configuration, and otherwise we can specify these files in our service. Same way that we supply production when we start our application for ASP.NET Core in the systemd service file. We're going to do the same thing here, okay? Let's go ahead and remove the .env.production file. We don't actually need it anymore. So with that being said, let's go ahead, commit a bunch of this stuff with the script changes and stuff like that. So this would be episode still 65. Config tweaks, what we'll call them. Right, commit, close all these windows, and let's push this as well. Okay, so once this is pushed, let's go into our GitHub Actions. We're going to start a workflow for our API, and we're going to start a workflow for our Nuxtjs config as well. Just get both of those applications updated, okay? While that is happening, we can go back onto our machine, which I'm connected to currently, and we can go ahead and fix the Nuxtjs configuration, or sorry, the nginx configuration. So sudo v etc nginx, and in here we're going to have our sites -available, and in here we're going to have our app. All right, so let's go ahead into the app, say about this much. And the problem here, you can see with this location -API or account, to tell nginx that this is indeed regex, you need to put a tilde sign. And what we have with the Razor page routing is it is turning to capital cases as well. So to turn this case insensitive, you got to put a star on the end. And let's just also say that it actually has to start with the /API or /account to route to our application, okay? And that's basically the fix there. Let's go ahead and sudo nginx test this configuration. Seems fine. Let's go ahead and reload it, and that's cool. So the next couple of things, while our applications are still publishing, we can go ahead and edit the environment variables for the Nuxtjs application. So let's go ahead into sudo, we'll cat into etc systemd system, and in our system is where we had our API, which actually had some of these environment variables. Let's just copy one of these lines. We can then go into the app service and VI into it to edit it. Let's go ahead and paste this. Oh, escape, and just if you're not in insert mode, exit it with escape. And if you just messed up like me, you can press U to undo, and then come here, paste the line, and give it an enter. Okay, exit it. And now let's go ahead and grab the sort of template configuration of what we want from our environment file. So let's go ahead and grab this bit here. Again, press insert, paste it in, and there we go. Now what we want to do is we want to grab this environment equals bit. Let's press insert, at the back, down, home, paste, right? Delete this line as we no longer need it. For the other bits, we can remove the URL so it can be relative. And then we can remove this as well for it to be relative here as well. And for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to specify https://app.rawcoding.net. Okay, and that's where it's going to go. All of our API calls are prefixed with an absolute route of /API in the application, and for that reason, I'm just going to put the host here, no slashes or anything like that. Okay. So I think we could actually get away with having just a slash here, although I'm not going to experiment, as this has already had quite a bit of mistakes. So let's go ahead and check out our builds. So this one has succeeded, and then the API has also succeeded. Let's go ahead and reload our services. So if we go to sudo, let's just exit here. So sudo systemctl, we're going to restart our tracking library API, and then we're going to do the same for our app. And it looks like we need to run daemon reload, obviously, because we changed one of the files. So daemon reload, restart the app again, and there we go, right? So coming back to the browser, let me just close all this stuff that we don't need. I'm going to give this a hard refresh, and the first thing that we should notice is if we can actually now navigate to the login. Another thing to test is that we can go to the create account and register. Let's go ahead and verify that our switch to Postgres, that our the administrator user is seated. So let's connect to tricking library. We're going to select all from ASP.NET users, semicolon, and there is our user, right? So quit that, let's say quit, exit, and just come back here and clear that. Okay, so let's just try to sign in. Again, remember that the password for the administrator user is coming from the configuration. So for me, that will be one of my super long passwords, and there it is, right? So we're an administrator here. Let's go ahead, try to create a difficulty. We'll say something like easy, peasy, create, and there we go. So it hasn't reloaded anything, and that should actually go into moderation if I'm right. So that's created. Let's go ahead and review it. We'll give it an approve. Okay, come back, and there we go. So I am more or less confident that it's working. Let's actually go and see that the ffmpeg stuff is working and stuff like that, right? And we can actually check the profile as well. So let's give this a try. So if I grab one of the images, let's go ahead, select that. There we go. Okay, good signs. Submission, we can't do submissions yet. Let's exit that. We'll need a category. Let's say flip, flop, create. Again, let's go into moderation. We'll quickly approve this. Okay, so there we have. Let's have a trick against which we can make a submission. So this will be something like, I don't know, backflip. Just a regular right? Difficulty, quite easy. Category, flip, next. Yep, create. Again, let's go into moderation process. Let's review and approve this change. Cool. So in here, let's go ahead and upload against this. We're going to take a video. Let's go ahead, get a description like hi. Okay. And I'm worried about two things here. So let's go ahead and quickly So that obviously failed. Let's go ahead and quickly figure out what it is that is exactly failed. So systemctl, or rather, sorry, sudo cat var log syslog and grep tricking library API. So I'm expecting to see something like not allowed or don't have access to a file system or something like that. So there you can see it couldn't find the file specified. So let's go ahead and see if there is anything of the sort like that in there. Doesn't seem to be. And let's go ahead and see if we failed to write anything like that here. A bunch of data protection warnings. We will actually need to sort that out as well. And those are all old errors there. So the first error is when we try to upload, and if we can take a look at the network, did we get anything here? No. Let's actually switch to Google Chrome here. And let's try to again log in as admin. Prefer this just a little bit more. Let's go to upload. We'll do a video again. And there we go. So that's the first error there. Let's take a look at it. Say preview, response, nothing. Let's cat the logs again. And it says could not find part of the path. So let's go ahead and actually create this directory here. So if we go back into, so right here you can say it could not find part of the path. So let's try to create this directory on the file system and see if that helps. So if we make dir, and we'll do, I don't know if we need to do sudo. Let's just try to do that. Let's now ls/temp. Probably was worth verifying if directory exists and then try to create it or something like that. So let's come back to our application. Let's give this a refresh just to get a fresh start. Let's go ahead and upload another video again. There we go. So we can actually try to verify this. So ls, yeah, let's try to list it. There's our temporary video. Let's go ahead, press next, review and complete. And let's go ahead ls again. Here we should see the converted ones. And at the end, I'm hoping they should get cleaned up, and there they are. Okay. So now they should be in the bucket, and there we go. So this one should be a bit of a, if we go to network, clear it, and we play the video. So there it's loaded. Let's see maybe how much it's loaded. You can see it is maybe, what is this? Partial content, maybe around 40 kilobytes or a megabyte, maybe something like that. Let's take a look at the actual video here. So properties, we'll see how much it is. 700 kilobytes. Maybe not the most high resolution video either from me, really. It's already quite a small video, but nevertheless, it didn't crash during the FFmpeg conversion. It cleans up the files. So I'm pretty confident that bit is working, and there we go, right? So we got a little bit of a social media website going on with moderation, comments, and stuff like that. Let's try to say awesome. Right, comment, cool. Now for the last bit, and we will give this a test. Where was I? I was in the terminal. Let me go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. What we want to do is we want to run sudo systemctl, and we want to enable your API service, and then just make sure that you enable your app service as well. What this is going to do is if we exit this and we refresh, this is all still working. If we then go ahead and reboot our service, what should happen is the applications should still be running. Okay, so let's go. I'm gonna wait for this to reboot, then we're gonna come back and we're just gonna make sure that everything is still working as expected. Okay, that has now rebooted. Let's go ahead and give it a refresh. We should get signed out, by the way. That is something I'm just gonna have a play around with the application and in the next episode, we will smooth out a bunch of things if that aren't working or that I find aren't working. Okay, so let's just keep refreshing. Hopefully the VM will come alive at one point. And there we go. So it takes a little bit of time, but from a fresh start, we are signed out because of that error of data protection keys being persisted in memory. So that is something that we'll need to take care of, right? But we'll take a look at it later. Nevertheless, this will be it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, subscribe. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comment section. If you need any additional support than rather just asking a question, you can come to my Discord server, ask the question there, or ask for help there. You can also join on my streams at Wednesdays and Sundays. I've been known to help solve bugs with this application live. So if you want to see how I go about solving problems, you can go ahead, tune in, follow, and, ask the question there. Otherwise, have a good day, good evening, and hope to see you in my other episodes.